Many people are familiar with that famous quote from a speech Dr. King gave on August 28, 1963 in Washington, D.C. In that speech, now called I Have a Dream, Dr. King repeated his theme over and over. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at a table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a desert state, sweltering with the heat of injustice and oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream where little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls and walk together as sisters and brothers. If you read the whole text of that speech, Dr. King was very clear about what he sought as his ideal, a world in which all men were treated with equal dignity and equal respect based only upon traits of character, not traits of skin color. Just 9 years before that famous speech, the United States Supreme Court, in a case called Brown v. Board of Education, held, essentially, that there was no such thing as separate but equal. What both the Supreme Court and Dr. King made clear was their conviction that there is no such thing as justice for African Americans, or, more accurately, for any American, so long as people are judged not as individuals, but only as indistinguishable members of a homogeneous race or group. Since Brown was decided, and since those famous words of Dr. King, sadly, we cannot claim to have eradicated all racial prejudice in our country. But we have come a long way in the last several decades, from the era of Jim Crow to an era in which there is more racial and ethnic diversity than ever, and in which the vast majority of Americans compassionately recognize that the color of one's skin or the country one comes from is simply not important. What is important is our character, as individuals, as members of society, and as a nation. At the same time, though, we often notice that our society is assailed by one group or another, or, what is worse, by politicians who try to create strife by casting our nation's problems as though they stem from a non-existent battle of one group of people against another, poor versus rich, employee versus employer, black versus white, women versus men. Yet, in our highest ideal, we know that these characterizations do not reflect in any material way who we are. More importantly, they do not reflect traits that govern how the law should treat us. While our system of law demands rightly that injustices must be addressed, promoting antagonism of one group against another is not how social justice can or will be achieved. Instead, it is only by placing proper emphasis and importance, socially and legally, upon our common interests as Americans that we can achieve a cohesive society. It is this conviction that lies at the heart of Pacific Legal Foundation's belief that the law does not allow the government to pick favorites, even in the name of remedying a past wrong or trying to compensate for past injustices. Giving one African American preferential treatment today cannot conceivably compensate his great-great-grandfather for the indignity of having been a slave, or compensate other African Americans for the prejudices they may have faced or the hardships they may have endured as a result of discrimination. Correspondingly, denying a city or state contract to a company owned by a white man hardly serves justice if it is the city or the state that is the culprit in discriminating against African Americans in the past. If our country is to put racial division and discrimination into the past where it belongs, then it is not right for our government to insist upon classifying individuals by race or ethnicity. Pacific Legal Foundation believes that using race or ethnicity as a proxy for merit or for anything else does not have a place in a free and civil society. There are many ways of honoring the legacy of Dr. King. Pacific Legal Foundation believes that the best way to honor it is to believe wholeheartedly and without reservation in what he preached, that race should have no bearing on how people treat one another or how a government should treat its own citizens. This year, on Martin Luther King Day, Pacific Legal Foundation is happy to pay tribute to the ideals of Dr. King.